So this is a class on open houses, and please, with your experience, feel free to interact, ask questions, stop me mid-sentence, whatever you got. So before we get started, I want to ask you guys, what's the purpose of holding an open house?
Get clients.
Yeah!
Meet people.
Meet people, get clients.
If you ask the listing agent, it's to sell the house, but
Yeah, it's never a sell house.
Can I get a handout?
Yeah, I mean, according to National Association of Realtors, NAR, under 3% of houses sell due to an open house. So could you sell the house because of an open house? Sure, chances are slim. The point is, it's an opportunity for you to get in front of strangers, build a connection, convert them into a client for life. That'll continue to feed you referrals. Yes?
yeah.
Okay, so I asked that question, and we really just set the tone, the essence for what's going to come next in this class. Like, what do you do to accomplish that? Versus, oh, I'm just doing an open house to try to sell this house. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to put these other handouts here in case. Okay, so what you'll notice in this handout that goes with it is simply a checklist, which we'll go over. These are some things for you that you want to have before you show up to your open house. So we'll go over that in a moment, but before we get there, before we get to the actual open house, what about the setup process that comes along with doing an open house? Because a lot of agents say, oh, I'm going to do an open house tomorrow, so they get some signs and then just show up. Now listen, I would rather an agent do that than not, right? Because at least you're in action, at least you're out there. But if you're going to invest time to be at an open house, why not spend a little extra effort to execute on a plan of action to help you get the most out of that investment of time called you being at an open house, right? So with that being said, we're going to talk about kind of the setup process to go into your open house mindfully, to drive more traffic there, to make the most of your time in the open house. But even after that, what are you going to do while you're there at the open house? I mean, that's another conversation as well, right? So if you look at your business plan, like, who could you follow up with while you're there waiting for people to come to the door? What other things could you be working on as far as following up with pipeline or lead generating, so that in between people coming to the open house, you're not just sitting there. Like, I gotta tell you guys, you know my story probably about how few open houses I've done. The reason I didn't like doing open houses is because my story was, when I get there, I'm gonna be bored and I'm gonna waste 3 or 4 hours of my day just sitting there, falling asleep. Oh great, I'll get a book. Well, what I found is that puts me to sleep faster. So, you know, here I am, I'm going to an open house for 4 hours on a Saturday where I'd rather be doing anything else. Now, that being said, that's because of my personality. A high D, not an I, introvert, not an extrovert, all these kinds of things, right? So, I'm saying all that to say that I was not effective at open houses because of my story about what open houses are and why we do them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That activity wasn't really in line with my personality. So if you don't have the personality for an open house, you may want to reconsider not doing it. Or if you are going to do it because there's something about it that you do like in getting in front of people, that's what this class is for. To kind of reframe, give you a new perspective on what an open house can do for you and how you can make it effective so that you show up in a different way. Yeah? Okay. So, let me ask you all a question. When does your open house begin?
The moment you decide.
Monday. The moment you decide to do it.
The moment you decide to do one, your open house has begun. The event has started. So, it's Monday morning, kind of like it is now. It's afternoon, technically, right? It's about noon. And you say, Saturday from 8 to noon, I'm doing an open house. Your open house has begun. Because now you've set an intention, I'm doing an open house. And every single time, up until the actual open house, every time you think of that open house and that event, energetically, whatever you're putting into that is what will be. So for example, use myself. Well over a decade ago, doing open houses, you know, all like 3, maybe 4 that I did. Right? Whenever I was like, I'm gonna do an open house, I'm like, oh God, I loathe this. I don't want to do it. It's gonna be a waste of time. It's hot. Da 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 da. Right? So let me guess. I put out the signs. I get into the house. I'm open, and a bunch of people come in. No, quite the opposite. Right?
Yeah.
Now, have you ever experienced, or have you heard of another agent experiencing, they did an open house and they had so many people come through, they couldn't even talk to everybody that came through? Yes?
Yep,
What's the difference? They had a better open house?
obviously.
Obviously. Right?
That's a bit.
It had to be the location.
It was definitely better marketing.
It was better marketing, it was better everything, right? Yeah. So, that's why I'm saying, like, the agent that says, okay, I'm doing an open house tomorrow, and they're so ill prepared and they had done nothing, but they're full of excitement and they're gonna get into action, like, I'm okay with that over them not doing it. Because all results are predictable based on the conversation you have with yourself before you take action. So they think open house and like, oh my God, I get to hold this house open, and I didn't have lead time to market and da-da-da, because the stars just aligned and the house became available, and they're super excited about it. Like, yeah, go do that. However, if you have lead time and you can plan this out, why wouldn't you do that? To prepare yourself. Every time you think of the open house, you're feeling into that, like it's gonna be a success. Not so much that I'm having dozens of people coming through, but I'm gonna connect with who does. And we're gonna build a relationship, and they're gonna be a client for life. Are you with me? Because that's the whole point of doing open house, is to get in front of people so you can build that. Yes? Okay. So if you look just at some of your notes here, and by the way, guys, I understand that at this very moment in time, with the way the market is, there's really, I'm not gonna say no such thing as, but it's extremely rare for a house to go live today on Monday and Saturday or Sunday it's still available. Like that's, unless it's significantly overpriced or it's a weird property or something's wrong, that's probably not the case. Most of our listings are selling in 24 hours, yes? Okay, so, but if you know of a property coming up, maybe your own listing, that's not going live till Friday, you know, this could be a good way to start the process going. And the state of our market right now, being a strong seller's market, is not gonna last forever, right? Okay, so it's still valuable tools and information to operate with this model as close as possible due to the market conditions. Am I communicating? Okay. All right. So, where's the best place to have an open house?
A house that's active, it doesn't matter. There's easier ones though. I mean,
What do you
easier than
mean?
others. Close, so when you're turning in, you can make great sign place,
Yeah.
placement and not too many turns to get there, or super desirable community, or a unique property that
Mhm.
isn't like everything, so.
Yeah, so there can be better open houses over
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
due to its location, right? Like, we're kind of jumping ahead, but if you look at the map for this house you want to hold open, and you're counting turns, and it's going to take you 15 signs just to get to the property. That's not saying one on each corner of the street. That's like just 15 turns. That's probably not the open house you want to do.
Unless it's a super special house.
Sure, you know, this is that exception, that unicorn, right?
Yeah.
But my question was, where's the best open house? And it's got a bit of a trick question. What I mean is this. Are you currently doing a farm? Is there currently a market area you want to break into? That's where you'd want to do the open house. I'll give you an example. When I started doing a massive amount of marketing to get business to come to me, I went like valley-wide. And I quickly learned that was not smart. So I narrowed down my geographical area to a very small location, like just Surprise at one point. And then when I was doing farming, I narrowed it down to a couple communities within Surprise that had the highest turnover rate. So for those of you that are doing farming, you'd want to look in those communities. And then if you're doing Furbo, Fisbo calls in those communities that you're farming, you'd want to do open houses in there. Does that make sense? Because the more exposure you have in a smaller geographical area, the more people are seeing you. The more they see you, the more they kind of feel like they might want to gravitate towards you. or completely repel based on your marketing. But you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to take a shotgun approach and just blanket market everywhere. So if you're doing a farm, if you're doing calls, and you've got a geographical area, start there first to look for open houses. Does that make sense? Because now people are seeing more of you and more frequently and consistently in an area. That's going to get you more mileage on your exposure, on your marketing. Got it?
Yep.
Okay. So, look for the most ideal location based on the marketing you're already doing, or the marketing you want to do, or the market you want to get into. Okay? Same thing, guys. Like, if you're not able to find a house in the area that you've been farming or been working in, call some FSBOs and just simply ask them, hey, can I hold an open house for you and do some marketing for you to get people to the door? I promise you, I'm not calling to list your property. I sincerely just don't have any properties to hold open. And if yours is still available, I'd like to support you. I'll represent the buyers that come through the door. You don't have to pay me a penny. Would you like to collaborate? What are they gonna say? No? And that means you're a horrible realtor and you should just quit and get out of the bed. Like, right? Like, has anyone done any open houses lately?
Yep.
Yeah? Is it difficult to get a property to do an open house on?
No, I mean, they're there, they're available.
Yeah?
I mean, I haven't done the FSBO route, but
Got it.
just looking at, the Libertas listings, I mean, they're going fast, but
Yeah.
they're popping up. I mean, you can do one during the week as well. Like if it comes
Very
available
true.
Monday, Tuesday, jump on it right then, because the type of market that it is,
Yeah.
people are out there as soon as they become live, so.
Yeah, so having a large lead time from deciding you're gonna do this property, say on a Monday to Saturday though, has been a little difficult. Have you found?
Yeah,
Can
if
it
you
still be active?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, okay. So a FSBO is a way to overcome that, because chances are those are gonna sit in the market a little longer. Okay, so there's always solutions. Okay. So first things first, once you've selected the property, you've cleared it with the seller, the listing agent, or if it's yours, right? Now the first thing you wanna do is look at its geographical location and count how many signs. And by the way, like, I've seen kind of everything in regards to marketing when agents look at sign placement. Some of the brokerages will use like 10 signs on the major road to get people to turn in. That's a way. But if you look at some of the municipality codes and so forth, they don't even allow that. And if they see that, they can come scoop up all your signs and save them for you? No, they toss them, right?
Yeah, I found that Surprise is like that. You can't have more than one, you can only do one sign per like corner.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
That's
major
it.
things.
Yeah.
Most other municipalities are the same, and they change and so forth, and I'm not an expert on what they are, but Surprise, yeah, is that. So one per turn.
Right.
Now, if you can get away with it, a couple extra, fine. But the other thing you can do, the reason they put out all the signs is for what?
Draw attention.
Draw attention. So what else could you do to draw attention besides put out a bunch of signs, especially because it's so damn hot?
Maybe one sign with balloons on it.
Yeah. You could go to the dollar store and get some like helium
Shiny ones.
foil balloons for $1.
Red.
I got these
Shiny.
little 50-cent spinners from
Pinwheels.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Pinwheels,
Yeah.
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 I mean, they're awesome.
Yeah.
And I had people return them. I'd be like, oh, you're the spinner guy.
Yeah, there you
so
go.
right there, it's like,
That's good marketing.
Yeah.
I actually
absolutely.
I bought a bunch of bike flags, the big
Yeah.
4-foot ones, because when you put them in that hole, same where your spinner's in, it kind of goes out on an angle a little bit, and it's large enough to where,
that's
because the sign's only this big, and if
Right.
it goes out this far out with a flag, then I get a lot of attention.
People on the sidewalk get slapped in the face.
Signs are flying down.
Yeah. But no,
Watch
it's
out,
actually a
watch
great
out.
idea because our eyes are naturally drawn to movement,
Right.
right? So if you have this little tiny sign and it's blending in with the background, but you got a little pinwheel, some foil balloons, something like this, it draws your attention to it. Yeah, you could get more traffic.
just be careful putting them near schools because kids will take them.
You put it on the
Kids
right
are
way.
like, oh, there's one of these fun things.
And don't put your sign right at the turn. Give them a little warning.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Otherwise, they swoosh past. Oh, I'll go on my way back. And then
They don't.
forget.
Yeah.
So when you say one at each turn, like on major streets, actually put it on one side of the street and then on the other side of the street where traffic's going. Is that
I do as well. So thank you. I was just going to draw this out.
Okay.
So let's say that we've got, let's see. Okay. Let's say your house is located, you know, there's some roads, whatever, right here. Pardon my drawing, for the sake of simplicity. If this is a major intersection, I personally like to do 2 signs on this street. So you're getting from both directions, right?
Yeah.
But now, here's the other thing. So let's say we do one, I don't know if this will help you see any different on the camera, but let's say you do one here and here. You're definitely going to want to pull them in off of every single potential artery into your property.
Yes,
And then, of course, at every turn, that was a horrible drawing, but you get my point, right?
yeah,
So at least you're going to want 3. So every single access point that's reasonable and prudent, you're going to want to have one on. Sometimes, you know those sub-artery roads that go all the way through? Because, you know, our whole like layout is on a grid, right?
Yeah.
You've got those sub-arteries. If there's roads off of there too, because some people use that to get to the entire community, right? Like, so I guess what I'm saying is, use a lot of signs, just not a lot of signs at every single turn. But you want to pull them in from every possible way you can, because you have no idea what direction people are going, right? So if you got 10 signs, I would look for 10 different places, not 5 here, 4 there, and 1 in front of the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So yes, there's a lot more effort in picking up signs, putting out signs, but you're going to have a much higher probability of drawing people to your open house. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I have been known on occasion to see a Libertas open house sign, and I'll follow it to just see. And sometimes I see the ridiculous, like 1,000,000 signs. It's pretty rare. And I don't have a problem with that. Especially if they're your signs and not mine, and they get picked up, but that's on you. But my thing is this, I've also seen like literally 1 sign on a major road and 1 in front of the house. Excuse me, not it's on the major road here, but not on the intersection. And then there wasn't one over here, especially if I knew the area, I'd be like, oh, I would have gone, right? Like, you're not doing yourself much favors. Think of it as fishing. Even if you've never been fishing, you get the idea. So if you're going fishing, and your pole, you got a hook and bait, yeah?
mhm,
How many fish can you catch on that?
1,
1 at a time.
yeah,
So if you want to catch more fish, what do you got to do?
throw more poles in the water,
More lines in the water.
more lines, yeah.
Isn't that what you're doing with all of these
Yeah.
intersection
Throw
points?
that hole in the water.
More lines in the water,
Yeah,
right? Higher probability of catching more fish. That's the closest analogy I can come up with. On the fly like
It's like
that.
breadcrumbs.
Yeah, breadcrumbs, exactly. So, any questions on signs? Okay. Let's see. You'll notice a bullet point in here. If the home is occupied, ask the seller, the listing agent, to have the seller remove any and all personal belongings like jewelry. That's really important to them. The worst thing you want is a couple hours after your open house is completed, the seller or the listing agent calls you and says something's missing, right? So if you have that conversation up front, especially in an email, and then something comes up missing, it's a lot easier for you to go, hey, I told you take all of the things that you're afraid might be stolen out of the house. Yes? Seemingly small and insignificant little task item, but could save you so much headache. Are you with me? Okay. Let's see. All right, again, the more lead time you have on marketing your open house, the better. It's kind of like marinating a steak, right? Like, do you want to marinate it for 5 minutes or for like 24 hours? You don't
Longer the better.
You want to let it marinate. So that's what your marketing's doing. Get it out there, get it exposure so that it can continue to grow. So here's some ideas on exposure for the open house. First and foremost, obviously you want to put it in the MLS. What happens when you put an open house event in the MLS?
It's
It syndicates. So you may or may not know Libertas we subscribe to a third-party company called ListHub. ListHub tells us that they push out our listings to 900 different real estate websites. So when they're syndicating that data, they syndicate open houses, if that's a feature on that website where they have listings, right? So what are some of the easy ones that you already know of that'll syndicate? Zillow, Trulia, Realtor,
Homes.
Homes.com,
Wow.
like the top ones. But if it's not in the MLS, then you'll have to go into those sites and put it in manually. Now, the other thing is this. When you put it in the MLS that there's going to be an open house, today's Monday, it's going to be on Saturday, it'll definitely pull to all those within about 48 hours. Okay? But you're going to want to go on and verify. So if it's Friday and you're doing an open house on Saturday, you might want to go manually input those on those different real estate websites to ensure that people are seeing it. Okay? Now, if it's not your listing and you're doing it for another Libertas agent, when you ask permission to do the open house and they okay with the seller, at that time, ask them to go put it in the MLS or their TC or whatever the case is. Get that puppy in there so that it gets syndicated. If you don't have that marketed on the other real estate websites that people go to look for properties, you're just missing out. It'd be like putting out one sign. Why would you do that? You're robbing yourself of the opportunity to succeed. Okay? Any questions? All right. So I should take a seat, Mr. Brenton. You should come up and talk about this next part. Door knock. So I know what I think. I'd like to hear from you loud and loud so that Mike can hear you. What is your process? Because you and Michelle have had some successes in holding open houses, but door knocking before the event. So what has really worked for you guys?
Want me to stand
Be on
up?
camera, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what we typically would do is make a flyer. We make a flyer up, say, just stating that we're having an open house. And we just put a personal invitation out to the neighbors. We would like to invite them to the open house. Just put a little bit of information about ourselves, maybe a little clip of our bio or something,
Mm-hmm.
just, picture of us, whatever. We typically do it a couple days prior to the open house. Go to, probably 20 homes, and basically just invite, that's our approach. We want to invite you to the open house. We want to let them know that, because our first thing is their first approach would be, or their first, we're not trying to sell our house. We're like, oh, we're not trying to sell your house. We're trying to sell this house.
Yeah.
And then they're
Relax.
like, oh, okay. So then when you kind of get the guard down a little bit, then you're kind of inviting them, you're letting them know that there could be increased traffic, just in case you're out walking your dog, make it sound like it's a safety. You're there to provide them comfort because you're, concerned about maybe the excess traffic, or maybe they have kids or whatever. Oh, I noticed that you had kids, or, you see something in the driveway that then you can spark up conversation. Kids, sports flags, whatever,
Yeah.
kind of
Common ground.
common
Yeah.
ground. Yep. So
Cool.
just leave them with something. If they're not there, we always leave a flyer at the door. So just leave something there for them.
So what I have in my notes, so tell me what you do, what's worked for a lot of agents is when they go door knocking, like a couple days before, is on that flyer say like, hey, the open house is from, let's say 9 to noon. However, because you're a neighbor and you live in the neighborhood, we're doing a private 1-hour session
Yep.
for the neighborhood.
Residents only.
Residents only,
Yep.
from like 8 to 9.
Yep.
The public's gonna be from 9 to,
Yep.
and what other agents have told me is it's been successful in giving those people that